Alright lads, so over here on the NA version of the game, we actually got the Interlude campaign. I kind of forgot that they could throw this out here because I was wondering what they were going to do in between last week, which is the release of Lost Belt 6, and next week, which is going to be the part 2 for Lost Belt 6. And I'm like, are they going to try to cram in the Nero Fest thing at that point? No, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. What could they throw our way? And I was like, yes, the Interlude campaign, which for a lot of people, it's just going to be a lot of extra Saint quartz because during the anniversary, as you guys may have known in one of my past videos, I talked about all the Saint quartz we're going to get for the anniversary. One of the things that we're going to be getting a lot of extra Saint quartz for is the completion of Interludes. And so by getting a couple of extra Interludes is going to be nice for most players because at least all 3 of these guys down here should be in everybody's Chaldeas. And if you happen to have these servants up here, then that's just extra Interludes for you to do to profit off of during the anniversary. But they also bring a couple of pretty nice buffs for Astolfo Saber, Canis, and Salieri over here, with, I believe, Astolfo having the best one in my opinion. I think it helps him out quite a bit, but the other 2 buffs are quite nice as well. So we're going to go ahead and talk about this in today's video, but before we begin, if you have not already, make sure you leave a like on the video and you subscribe to the channel for that sweet daily FGO content where your boy is going to make sure that you are always informed on what is going on both the NA and JP versions of the game. Also, if you want to see me play FGO Live, I do that every weekday starting at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over on my Twitch, which is linked down in the description down below. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and start diving right into some of these buffs. And we're going to start off with the most simple one. That's Salieri's. It's going to be a buff to his 3rd skill, which originally is kind of like this weird 5-turn buff that, you know, has a 5-turn cooldown. In theory, is kind of good, but realistically, you're going to take advantage of it for 3 attacks for this 30% defense down. But what it does add to him is this massive crit niche that he has. Now, it is only for 1 turn, but as we all know, if you've ever used someone like, say, Merlin or Scotty, who they themselves have a way to offer you 100% crit damage, Scotty it being specifically quick crit damage, and for Merlin it's only being limited to 1 turn, you would know, though, that 100% crit, that while you're able to take advantage of it, is very, very strong. And even though Salieri doesn't have the highest stats because he is a 3-star servant, 100% crit damage, whenever you could take advantage of some of his other skills that actually allow you to gen stars over here, you could start doing a lot of extra damage, especially because this 30% crit damage and this 100% are going to mesh very well into each other, giving you potentially 130% crit damage. That's just going to be quite nutty. This will also be a lot better when, say, Lady Avalon comes out, who is a art support type servant that also offers you a little bit of crit damage as well. So that'll make someone like Salieri a bit better. But this is definitely just nice for him being able to do extra burst damage, right? Especially because this is a massive star weight buff that is going to allow him to just suck up all those stars and pretty much guarantee that he's going to do some crit. So Salieri's buff is quite nice. It's nothing super insane, but, you know, it's a nice thing for him to have. It's just an additional thing that he has, but I look forward in the future to seeing what more they'll do for Salieri because they aren't exactly doing a whole lot with him right now, but who knows, maybe an ordeal call he'll be relevant for some reason and they'll throw him in there. Canis has a very simple buff as well that I think made her a decent bit better because Canis is one of those servants that may have some issues when it comes to genning her NP, and so they buffed her 2nd skill by giving her a 20% battery and also allowing her to gen 15 stars every single turn for 3 turns, which I think is super nice, especially considering that she has this all on a 5-turn cooldown. The only thing that is really unfortunate is that this comes right before Koyenskaya comes out, and as you guys would have known if you've watched my Buster farming guide, you really want to have at the bare minimum a 30% battery to a 50% battery if you want to be viable with Koyenskaya. So Canis having a 20% just makes her a little bit off, just a bit shy of being good with the Koyenskaya meta. Now, I mean, her other skills aren't exactly super conducive for her being viable in the Koyenskaya farming system, right? But it just would have been nice to have another option, or for people that really like Canis and went out of their way to like NP5 her, it'd be nice if they would have the option to use her, right? Because I get that not all the time we're not going to use the most optimal servants. I'm guilty of doing that. Sometimes I will just use a servant that is not exactly optimal to use, but if they can get the job done, I'm going to break them out just because I like that servant. So I would have liked some people to have that option with Canis, but if you're going to use her in more difficult content, which is what it seems that she's kind of being geared towards, she's actually not going to be all that bad if you want to bring Koyenskaya with her to that more difficult content where she may not be able to do farming, but still lowering the low skill cooldowns of a lot of these skills can be taken advantage of in some of those scenarios. So being able to kind of spam the battery, maybe have this defensive skill up a little bit more often, it makes her a little bit better, right? She's not like completely terrible. Funding her own stars, especially as a Buster Servant that can get some nice crits going with her own NP, and again with Koyenskaya, that could actually be kind of nice. So I don't think she's like completely terrible or anything. I think you could use her, but she's kind of slipping into a very, I guess, like Bargus Sith type tiering, where I think they're kind of sitting in this like B tierish area where, yeah, you can use them, but there's clearly better options to use, but you might use them because waifu reasons. But speaking of waifu reasons, or I guess husbando reasons, whatever you want to go for, whatever is your prerogative, we have Astolfo over here, and I absolutely love the buff they gave this dude because I think it helps him out in a lot of ways. Now, would I have liked to see him get something like a 30 to 50% battery like they did with Ilya that made her really, really good, makes them really viable for some of these large enemies in these 90 plus nodes and 90 plus nodes later on? Yeah, that would have been nice, but just still using him as kind of like the baby quick version of Melusine, because he's kind of supposed to spam his NP, but nobody really does it like Melusine. It's kind of hard to compare people to her, but you know, kind of same style that they're going for here. They want you to spam stuff with quick cards as best as you really can. I think it's a fine buff to give him, right? Because it gives him immediate access to his NP and NP over time. So I guess you could make the argument that, well, if the large enemy is on wave 2 or 3, you could still technically use him for farming because, you know, after that first node, he'd get an additional 20%. And if you needed that, then bada boom, bada bing, you could do the farming. So I guess technically has some aspects in there, but also probably going to be more useful to get immediate NP and more difficult content, because keep in mind, Astolfo Saber doesn't, you know, hit like a feather. He's got some pretty decent damage going for him, and it's free. Now, again, we're kind of in the age where you do want to have, say, damage mods or some type of gimmick, some type of like build-up that you might be doing, or again, different damage mods that you can hit so you could start doing better in more scenarios. But I still feel that, again, as I mentioned Melusine earlier, who also doesn't have any damage mods and just kind of does free damage, I think these type of servants are all right to have floating around. Just guys that in no matter what scenario they're thrown in, they can just do well. They'll always kind of perform the same way because that makes them very reliable, right? Because maybe you're going to go up and fight somebody where like, all right, well, I don't really want to use someone like, say, Sigurd because I'm not fighting a dragon and then his consistency issues are not all that worth it. I'm going to break out someone like Astolfo because they might do less damage technically, but they're more consistent and I know I can rely on them because they'll pretty much perform the same way every single time. I think that's nice. And then he also bombs 20 stars. Now, I don't really think stars are a problem for a quick servant over here because that's kind of the whole name of the game, especially a guy that has 9 hits on his NP. I think he's going to be fine when it comes to genning stars, but I like the ability for servants to just immediately have access to stars as soon as the battle begins. It lets them start off their first turn in some of these more difficult stages very, very well. And then also just being able to drop 20 stars is also nice for any other DPSs you might have also brought alongside with you, or if you're pairing this with other star bomb CEs, you could start off easily with a 50 star setup, right? That could also be very nice, just guaranteeing that your entire first turn has crits. That can be kind of nice. But overall, all of these are very solid buffs. I don't think any of them are like the most broken thing on the planet, but definitely makes Astolfo better, definitely makes Canis better, and definitely makes Salieri better. These are not like wasted buffs, I would say, but you know, they're not also the craziest things on the planet. Like they're not like the Ereshkigal buff that she's going to get that makes her quite nutty, but we'll talk about that when it actually comes out. For now, if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, leave your thoughts in the comments down below. Let me know if you're excited for any of these, or this might change if you're going to use some of these servants or not. Maybe you have Astolfo Saber, haven't really used him, but now that he's getting this buff, maybe you'll take a crack at using him in, I don't know, some random Lost Belt 6 fight. I don't know. Bring him to fight Morgan. Let's see how that goes. But with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day. Peace. Away, guys.